this is 6th grade, Module 1, Lesson 4 of Engage New York. You will need the classwork paper and also the problem set or homework for Lesson 4 to go along with this lesson. This lesson is also going to be about equivalent ratios. We're going to use a couple of strategies that we've already learned to solve problems about equivalent ratios. We'll start with example number 1. The morning announcement said that 2 out of every 7 6th graders in the school have an overdue library book. Jasmine said, "That would mean 24 of us have overdue books." Grace argued, "No way, that is too high. How can we determine who is right?" Well, we've used 2 strategies so far to solve questions about equivalent ratios. We've learned the ratio table and most recently the tape diagram. So decide which strategy you would like to use. I'm going to do the tape diagram for this activity. The reason I chose to do the tape diagram is I looked at our original ratio, 2 to 7. This is the number of students with overdue books, and this is the total number of 6th graders. And then Jasmine gave us the number of 24 students with overdue books. So when I look at the number gap between 2 and 24, it's pretty significant. A ratio table really looks at small increments. It needs to go in order. So I think a tape diagram is going to be the best strategy for this problem. So when I'm drawing a tape diagram, I know it should always match my ratio. So I'm going to do that now. And 2. Okay, so I have 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And this is overdue books to the total number of 6th graders. Now, Jasmine said the total number of 6th graders the number of 6th graders with an overdue book is 24. So with that the case, I know I need to break 24 into 2 equal groups. You can do division, or I know that 12 plus 12 is 24. If these values are 12, then the rest of the boxes must be 12 also. So now we can determine what is the total number of 6th graders. So I have 12 in each group times 7 groups, 84. So the ratio of 6th graders with overdue books to the total number of students would be 24 to 84. Now that we've found that information, we can go back and make sure that we've answered the question. The question asks, how can we determine who is right? So this is what Jasmine is saying, that there's 24 students with an overdue book. Grace said that this number is too high. But how can we prove if Grace or Jasmine are right? Now, a lot of students might think, well, we've got 24 on the tape diagram, so Jasmine must be right. But I want you to remember, we made this tape diagram using the number 24. So we didn't necessarily prove that Jasmine was right. We just used her information to build an equivalent ratio. Grace is saying that 24 students with overdue books are too many. So let's say there were only 21 students in 6th grade. That would mean only 6 of them have overdue books. So in that case, Grace would be right. This ratio is also equal to 2 to 7. Unfortunately, this problem doesn't give us enough information to determine if Jasmine or Grace is right. We don't know the total number of students in 6th grade at this school. So it was kind of a trick question to get you to create equivalent ratios. Hopefully it worked. We'll move on now to exercise number 1. It says, decide whether or not each of the following pairs of ratios is equivalent. If the ratios are not equivalent, find the ratio that is equivalent. If the ratios are equivalent, identify the positive number C that could be used to multiply each of the first ratio by in order to get the numbers for the second ratio. We're back to using our algebra. So let's do a little reminder of that. So we have two ratios, A to B and C to D. And then we also have our positive variable C to determine whether or not they're equivalent. So the first ratio that they've given us is 6 to 11. So we have 6 to 11. Okay? And we need to determine if it's equal to 42 to 88. Okay, so I've got these color-coded because these numbers correspond to each other. These numbers correspond to each other. Now we need to identify our positive number C. So what number can I multiply? Because C equals C times A. C times A. So what number can I multiply times 6 to get 42? Times 7. So in this case, C equals 7. So 6 times 7 is 42. And it looks like we're off to a good start. So far we've got a match. But now we need to remember D equals C times B. So we need to take this same value C and multiply it times B. 7 times 1 is 7. 7 times 1 is 7. So now we have created equivalent ratios. Those are equivalent. Now, we need to know if these two ratios are equivalent. So do they match? 42 match, but 77 and 88 do not match. So 6 to 11 is not equivalent to 42. 8 to 88. They are not equal. So on your classwork, click no, they are not equal. And then what is an equivalent ratio to 6 to 11? Well, that's what we've created here. Go ahead and pause the video and answer part B. Okay, good. Now for part B, you should have completed that by now. So we have ratio 0 to 5, and we need to know, is that equivalent to 0 to 20? The question is, are these equivalent? Okay. So now we need to identify what is our positive value C. What number can we multiply these by to get this ratio? So the 0 kind of is a tricky part to it, but 5 times what would equal 20? 5 times 4. So if we multiply our first ratio, our AB ratio, times 4, 0 times 4 is 0. 5 times 4 is 20. So now we've created an equivalent ratio. And does it match the ratio in question? Yes, it does. So these two ratios are equivalent, and we've identified the positive number C as 4. Make sure to mark that on your paper and fill in the blank.